What's going on, everybody? It is Del K. Brereton. This is the real spiel. Like, share, and subscribe. And I call it Entrepreneur Friday. Big things to talk about real quick. But Entrepreneur Friday is where I will be posting entrepreneurs, black entrepreneurs, and other entrepreneurs. I'm not specific, but currently we're just trying to build some black businesses in the wake of what's taking place with Kyrie, with Nike, with any other potential endorsements that they're trying to take out of his hands. But we're trying to have a focus on black business real quick for this week. And I would like to inform you that I have 3 fantastic businesses that I have posted in my community page. But I'd like to speak about one black business right now, and I will address the other ones during the day in my other videos that are coming up. I try to do about 6 of these a day, right? So that's my template, 6 of these a day. Once the algorithm loves you, you got to keep giving it content. You got to feed it. But Willie Huggins Jr. Willie Huggins Jr., what's going on, brother? Willie Huggins Jr. is a single father of 5. He's got, I believe he says he has three sons and 2 daughters, or 2 sons and 3 daughters. I'm sorry, Willie, I forgot how that works. I think it's 3 daughters and 2 sons. And what he's done is he has all of his children engaged in entrepreneurial work. He has 3 of his daughters with 3 businesses. And you know, a brother who's a father of 5, he said that he grew up really in the projects in the ghetto, and he never wanted his children to grow up the way that he grew up. And he has sole custody. He's had sole custody for 20 years, he says, of all of his children. He's got older children and he's got teenagers. And he is essentially wanting us to support his daughter's business. He was messaging me for one of his daughter's Instagrams. And so we've got their business on the community page. Collections with a Z by Cavs. Collections by Cavs. For me, Willie Huggins Jr., man, you're the father of the month, brother. 5 children, got sole custody of your kids. You got them doing entrepreneurial stuff. That's a great brother, man. Please support him. And the other young ladies, I have a young lady in the UK. She has a superfood business, and the business is actually called Kyrie, interestingly enough. So check her link out for her Instagram. And Lisa Enoch, she's got a jewelry company. I believe it's called Water by Word. So those 3 are on my link. I didn't know if I remember everybody's names. I wasn't sure if I was. I didn't want to stumble on anybody's name. But it's entrepreneurial. It's Entrepreneurial Friday. And there's another brother who messaged me on Instagram. He wants to help me make my videos a little bit better. Thank you very much, bro. I'm going to say your name in a minute, but as soon as we have a conversation. And people are reaching out to me. They want me to come on shows and things like that. That's fantastic. Let's try to figure all that out, all right? But let's get to the business that we're dealing with. Burn, Nike, burn. Remember, that's at the top of our mind. Keep your eye on the Nike stock. But today, we're going to move our focus to focused on Alibaba. Before I talk about Alibaba, which is the sole owner of the Brooklyn Nets company, that he is the vice president and majority shareholder. I'm going to talk about him in a real quick second. But breaking news, apparently Adam Silver is now saying he stands with Kyrie Irving. But listen to this, ladies and gentlemen. Listen to what he says. He says he stands with Kyrie Irving, that he has a meeting with Kyrie, and he realizes Kyrie is not anti-Semitic. He doesn't have anti-Semitic thoughts. But he has to go through this process of reestablishing himself with the Nets. And listen to the words he says. Listen to these words. He says, "This whole situation was very unfortunate." Now, to you, it sounds like, oh, that's what's wrong with that? That's exactly what Kyrie Irving said when he was asked about some of the comments in the book and documentary From Hebrews to Negroes. He says, yes, some of those things were unfortunate. Isn't it interesting that Adam Silver used the exact same phraseology? Unfortunate. And I think that's really not an admission that he believes that he's not anti-Semitic. It is his little jab, his little petty jab of saying, yeah, Kyrie, this whole thing is very unfortunate. If Adam Silver believes that Kyrie is not anti-Semitic, then what is this all about? Why is there still all these things that needs to be done. Why isn't he back playing right away? Why didn't he pick up the phone and say, Joe, this thing is, just put him back on the court? Why doesn't he do that? No. No, I don't buy it. It's ridiculous. It means that this entire process was a complete imbecilic waste of time. That it wasn't a process to basically drag a young man to the point where they can say, hey, when we tell you something is wrong, you go online, you apologize, and you get back to business. You don't start having your own free-thinking thoughts. You don't do that. We tell you how to think here. And that whole thing just smells ridiculous to me. If Adam Silver is saying, I do not believe Kyrie Irving is anti-Semitic, then this whole conversation is done, right? But that's not what it's about. Period. Let's move on. I'm going to come back to that later. Tsai. Tsai, the head of Alibaba. I want you guys to understand from my perspective, because I don't give it the way other people give it to you. My perspective on Tsai, when I do my research and I look into who Tsai is and why Tsai is the sole owner of the Brooklyn Nets and why Adam Silver and the NBA allowed this man to control and own the Brooklyn Nets, is because Tsai is essentially China in America. Tsai is the open road to China. He is Chinese basketball. Putting Tsai as the owner of the Brooklyn Nets basically guaranteed the NBA's ability to access China, to access China's market, China's viewership, because we know, unless the government lets things be seen in China, ain't nobody watching no NBA. And that's what, 2 billion people? I don't know how many Chinese are running around right now. It's about 2 billion people over there, right? 1 billion plus people. That now that market is wide open for the NBA. Wide open market. And Tsai is extremely protective and protectionist about China. He makes sure that nothing derogatory comes from the NBA about China. Do you remember when there were some unfortunate words that were said by an NBA exec about China, and the Chinese government wanted an apology? They wanted that guy to be fired. They wanted him to be canceled. Do you remember? And the NBA would not enforce that. And China said, oh yeah? Well, you know what? Forget about coming over here. Forget about, we're not showing any games from that team. They started to become China. And so now, isn't it interesting that the Russian owner sold it to the Chinese owner, and now Tsai is an apologist for all things Chinese. He's the open door to China for the NBA. That's part one. Part two is, under the leadership of Tsai, the Brooklyn Nets are the only sole NBA team that lost money last year. They're the only NBA. The NBA is a cash register of money. This guy, who can run which I'll talk about his company before, who can run an e-commerce, consumer to corporation e-commerce direct marketing company, he can't run a basketball franchise. He cannot run a basketball franchise with black players. Nobody wants to talk to Tsai. Nobody wants to deal with Tsai because they realize Tsai is China. How do you not make money with an NBA franchise? This is part three. Part three, ladies and gentlemen. Tsai, when he bought the Brooklyn Nets, he paid more money than anybody's ever paid for a franchise. He overpaid for it. Listen, I know he's an $8 billion man, but let me tell you something. Billionaires don't become billionaires because they overpay for stuff, right? I saw a multitude of valuations for the Brooklyn Nets. Apparently, the Brooklyn Nets are worth about $3.5 billion. That's what the allegation is. and sorry, forgive me, I had the numbers in my head last night. A lot of this stuff I do it last night. I sleep on it. I get up so I can just talk. I don't have the numbers. So you guys can do the background. I don't want to just spout out numbers and you say, oh, those aren't the numbers, you should do your research. No, I don't have the numbers in my head right now. What I do know is that he paid more than anybody's ever paid for a franchise, and that according to Forbes, that he overpaid, and the franchise is about $3.5 million, and he is the only NBA team not to have made any money. I've had a couple of different valuations that came down the pike for the Brooklyn Nets. We all know an NBA franchise right now, it's just cash. It's money, 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 money. It's money. We found out when Sterling sold his team, the Clippers, by force, that an NBA franchise is worth $1 billion. From that time to now, an NBA franchise is worth $3 billion. Wow. And this dude can't make money. So if he can't make money, he's overpaying for it. Well, listen, he's overpaying for it. He doesn't even know how to make money on it. Let me hit you with this. This is the last part of it. This is the end of it. Is the Brooklyn Nets simply a money laundering institute for the government of China? Woo! Who overpays? Listen, let's break it down to our level. You go, there's a house on the corner, right? You say, oh man, this house, wow, wonderful. Let's do a valuation. Oh, the house is worth $1 million. Wonderful. You walk in there, there might be a little bit of a bidding war, right? $1.1 million, $1.2 million. You walk in there and say, I'll pay $2 million for the house, right? They're gonna take it, right? You don't gotta go to the bank to get a mortgage for it, because he's a billionaire, right? So he says, I'm gonna pay $2 million for it. And he sinks and he says, but I gotta wire the money from another country, right? In Toronto, we understand that process because we have all Chinese and foreign money coming into our housing market, overinflating our housing market. Our housing market is overinflated because of foreign buyers buying homes in Toronto, and it drives the price of houses up for us here domestically in Toronto. Right now, you gotta be a multi-millionaire to be able to even buy a house in Toronto. It's crazy, it's nuts. Joseph Tsai overpays for this house, the Brooklyn Nets. And then he's showing losses. Can't make money. How do you not make money in an NBA franchise? No, buddy. No. And then he's an apologist for the Chinese government. You can't say a word. If you are an NBA exec, an NBA player, talk about cancellation for speaking against Jews. Do not speak against the Chinese. You can't say it because the Chinese now are in bed in business with the NBA, not the Chinese people, the Chinese government. My allegation, I'm gonna throw it out there, Mr. Alibaba, get into that in a minute. You're a funneling, money-washing organization for the Chinese government. You allow the Chinese government to wash their money in America utilizing the NBA. That's your role. That's your job. That's what you do. And Alibaba, we're gonna say the number one competitor of Alibaba is Amazon. And I'm gonna say right now, ladies and gentlemen, and everybody who supports Kyrie, don't use Alibaba. If you want to do e-commerce, if you want to have your online stores, Amazon. Use Amazon. Who is still running the book and the documentary? Who's still got it up there even though everybody's screaming, you gotta take it down, you gotta take it down? Amazon. Amazon's out there making it the #1 seller. I'm telling everybody, I'm screaming, let this voice be heard around the world. If you've got e-commerce, if you've got online business doing with Alibaba, switch it over. Don't know how hard that is, to be honest with you. I'm not sure. But if you can, switch it over to Amazon. Don't even look in the direction of Alibaba. looking in the direction of Alibaba is basically saying that I support the Chinese government. It is the Chinese government. You all know, and those who don't, now you do, that any Chinese multi-billionaire, any Chinese mogul, his money can be taken away by the Chinese government anytime. The Chinese government can lock you up. I don't care how rich you are. They can put you away. You step your foot back in China. Listen, you can't say nothing. If you're a citizen of China, you can't say nothing. Joseph Tsai is a Chinese Canadian. Apparently, he's made his money in Vancouver and on the West Coast in Toronto. But I'm gonna tell you what Joseph Tsai is, and I say it again, and I want you to keep repeating it. Joseph Tsai is how the NBA facilitates money laundering and the washing of government money from the Chinese government, getting it into the NBA and having it be washed clean. Nobody overpays for an NBA franchise and then loses money. Joseph Tsai, Alibaba, you guys are simply just the Chinese government. Thank you for raising up my antenna, because you're messing with the wrong community. Period. And when your poop stinks, we gonna call it out on you. And listen, this whole thing stinks. It whole thing stinks. This guy doesn't know how to either he's extremely incompetent. Let's put it together. He's either a big dummy, which I said last night. This guy must be really dumb if you're losing money in the NBA, or maybe you're really smart. Maybe that's exactly what you want to do. You're overpaying for it. You start losing money to make up on the fact that you've overpaid for it, minimizing your tax consequences, but you don't care because you're a funneling organization for the Chinese government. Joseph Tsai, we see you, bro. Alibaba, we see you. Let's get that stock down too. I believe Alibaba's trading for about $62 a share. I believe that's what I remember taking a look at. Let's chop away at that too. You've had a little difficulty in the last little while too. Alibaba is the Chinese government. No American should do business with Alibaba. Nobody walking around in the free world should do business with Alibaba. And Joseph Tsai, the bag man for the Chinese government, that's what you basically are. You're the bag man for the Chinese government. We see you, and we're not working with you. We're going to expose you. We're going to put it out there. And I've said too much. This is Big Del, Uncle Del, and I will tell. This is the I call it the big spiel. Now I should call it the big spiel, but this is the real spiel. All right? And ladies and gentlemen, let this message be heard around the world. Joseph Tsai, you're a bag man for the Chinese government. And the Brooklyn Nets is a funneling organization. You either don't know how to run a company, or you know very well how to run a company and lose money in a league that it's impossible to lose money. You're the only NBA team to lose money last year. That is suspicious. You've been put on notice. And I'm out. Like, share, and subscribe. Tell somebody. Joseph Tsai is a bagman for the Chinese government. And the NBA is in bed with the Chinese government. It's a money laundering organization, but it's called the Brooklyn Nets.